Okay, it has been 30 years since they first blasted onto the scene. I'm talking about Wheatus. It has been 25 years since that song also first hit our ears. Of course, I'm talking about Teenage Dirtbag, baby. And it was my pleasure to welcome frontman Brendan B. Brown, singer, guitarist extraordinaire, founder of Wheatus. Without him, Wheatus wouldn't even exist. So, Brendan, thank you so much for coming on the show and welcome.
Thank you, Helen. How you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very, very good. Very excited to have you guys back here. I know you were here recently, I think in 2023.
2023 and I think 2024. I
Yeah,
can't. There were
I
so
know
many
the
dates.
dates kind of like flow into each other. Hey, well, you're going
Yeah.
to be coming back for another concert at the Academy in November. We're very excited to have you. But I'm so happy to chat to you and kind of get inside the mind of the Wheatus founder and frontman. So I want to take you right back though, because I'm very curious to find out sort of where music began for you as a young boy growing up in New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Uh, Earliest memories are of singing along to Bobby Darin's version of Mac the Knife in front of my mother had an antique cabinet that had a mirror on it, and it was inherited from her mother's mother or whatever.
Okay.
And she kept all the records in there, and her reel to reel was in there as well. And between Bobby Darin's Mac the Knife and Fleetwood Mac Rumors, which my mother actually had on reel to reel tape, I learned how to use the reel to reel. Maybe 3 or 4 years old. I was rewinding the
Wow.
reel to reel to advance it to the point where I could hear secondhand news again. And uh, that track, I was obsessed with how sort of chunky and round the tape felt and sounded through the speakers. So I just kept rewinding it to the beginning of
Yeah.
that song. And that's my first musical memory, I would say. Yeah.
It's interesting that there's a Mac reference. It's like Mac the knife, Fleetwood Mac. Is there something in
Yeah.
that? You like McDonald's?
No, I kind of, I don't know what it was between those two. It's just a snappy little word, isn't it? Right. So
It
you're
really
kind
is.
of, yeah, you're beginning to associate music with vowel and pronunciation and consonants and the cadence of things. Earliest maybe neuropaths for being a songwriter,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
putting words
Yeah.
together.
So
Yeah.
something triggered you there. That's amazing. And then, I mean, I know we just got together. It's been 30 years. 30 years flies by, really, if you think about it.
It
But
does.
here we are. Like, but
Mm.
I mean, when you sort of decided to make music your future, and you were like, oh, let's give this a crack. Let's see if we can do this thing. Obviously your brother was involved as well. But when did you actually start songwriting? Because that always kind of comes first, I feel.
I wrote the first sort of full guitar composition that I can still play and remember all the parts of when I was about 16 years old.
Okay.
And it was this sort of, classical piece that had this melodic feel to it and meandering sort
Are
of.
you self-taught?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Well, so my early on, I was about 8 years old. My mother showed me how to play "My Girl" by the Temptations on
Oh,
on
nice.
her sort of nylon string guitar, and I just I kind of took it from there. I took a few lessons here and there to learn some AC/DC chords, but I was a terrible student. I still cannot read music, partly to a learn sort of reading disability that I have, but also because I just would be frustrated and just wanted to get on with it a little quicker.
Yeah.
And I could learn a song by myself listening to the stereo faster than I could
Okay.
even reading tablature, you know?
So you could translate what you heard, kind of pitch perfect, I guess, to
Well,
translate that into
no,
the
just
notes.
yeah, I don't have perfect pitch, but what I did have was on the guitar, at least I had a real shape sensibility of where things were.
Okay.
So I just knew what a chord, I knew what an A chord sounded like. I could go sit
That's a
down and
gift. That's a real gift.
it was very fortunate. So then I could kind of through high school got into more complex music, Rush and Yes and Prince and Willie Nelson. Um,
That's good
you know,
company.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And anything that was that where it was like, "Ooh, I don't know that chord. What's that chord?" And
Okay.
just sit down and try and figure it out. So yeah.
Okay. And
Self-taught.
do you remember the first time you had to get up in front of an audience? I mean, apart from, in front of your family at school, perhaps?
To perform music, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a seventh grade talent show, and I sort of coaxed two other guys into sort of semi learning how to play "Money for Nothing" by Dire Straits, um,
Okay.
which I knew well on the guitar. There is some VHS video of
Oh, is
this. Uh,
there?
yeah, made its way into a documentary that a couple of guys from England are making about us. It's called "You Might Die,"
Oh, I
but
saw something about that. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, the ending of that documentary keeps changing, so it's getting harder and harder to finish.
Okay. Okay.
Initially, it was about a band that was about to die. It was about to finish up and be over. And as you
That didn't happen.
know, it didn't happen. Yeah, so so it's not. We started a movie, and then whatever it was about changed drastically. So
Yeah, the universe was like, no, just not quite yet.
yeah,
So, I
yeah,
mean, obviously, the band members have changed over the years. The OG Wheatus were, around four teenage Dirtbag. Was it collaborative? Because I know where the song was inspired from. I don't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty of that.
sure.
I know a lot of people know the story, and the world's crazy enough at the moment. But yeah, like was it a bit of a collaborative effort, or was it just you? You had the lyrics and you were like, right, guys, we're going to do
I was
this.
alone. I was alone with it for quite
Okay.
some time. I'd say from around 95, 96, 97. I was quite on my own. And then I bumped into my friend Phil Jimenez, who I'd been in another band with around 94 or 93. And he was in the process of building a studio because he was interested in production. And I was also in the same process of acquiring gear so I could learn how to use it because I was trying to come up with this hybrid sound of a record I had never really heard, which was somewhere mixing all of what James Taylor and Paul Simon and the Indigo Girls did with what Metallica and Rush and AC/DC and Public Enemy did. These sort of
Mm.
harder hitting records with the folk in there. And Phil instantly gravitated toward that concept. I played him Teenage Dirtbag when we bumped into each other in a music store around 96 or 97, I think. And we immediately started collaborating on the production of the record. So there was no band at this point.
Okay.
It was just myself and a drum machine, a bass, a microphone, my guitar, trying to put these elements together to make sense and create this new hybrid that I was wanting to hear. And Phil had a bit more expertise on, he was a student of Daniel Lanois and all of the sort of world music production stuff, Brian Eno and the Talking Heads, and how to make records that sound new and interesting. And it was very fortunate that we even knew each other at all because there weren't a lot of people on Long Island working in those directions at the time. So we were able to start producing the record before there was a band. And around the end of 97, we started to play shows when my brother got back from college and started teaching him these drum parts that we had mapped out on the drum machine. So my brother is actually learning the drums from a machine. And we had
Okay.
so much time to work on the nuances of the way that those drum feels, the swings all sounded, that he was learning a sort of a novel approach to the drums. And we started recording, and we recorded the album, the majority of the album, maybe three times.
Okay.
Started over each
Mm.
time. That was pretty good. Let's go from at this angle this time and see if this works. And we got closer and closer until we finally got a record deal in 1999. And Columbia Records wanted to put the demos that we had worked on to that point. They wanted to release that as the album, and we begged them not to. We said, "Oh,
Yeah.
please give us $50,000 and 2 weeks in my mother's house, and we'll finish this properly." Because all we thought we needed was gear, and at the time, that was true. All we
Yeah.
really needed was a little bit more equipment to do a proper studio recording. As amateur as we were, we weaved a little path of professionalism somehow, accidentally, and we finished the record at my mother's house between mid-February and early March of the year 2000, and
Mm.
delivered it the following April. So yeah,
And then I know that the song. I mean, the album. It obviously was. All the songs on it were close to your heart at the time. And when I know, as a musician and as a singer, you never really know what's gonna hit. Did the record company obviously had an idea that Teenage Dirtbag was the number one track, or was it one of the others?
That's an interesting question. No one's ever really asked it from that angle before. So what had happened was the crowds that we were drawing, which began in late '97 at small New York rock clubs as just friends and family,
Yeah.
had kind of mushroomed into lines around the block, people we didn't know, and we didn't have a record deal, so we were selling out shows in New York City regularly. And the song that everybody sang the loudest to was Teenage Dirtbag. So it was
Okay.
really a crowd pick from
Yeah.
early. Um, and all that needed to happen was for record label people to witness that one night, and it was over. It was like,
They were
oh, the
like,
crowd knows every word to this song, and
yeah.
no, you know. And there were other songs that the crowd was excited about, but none quite as intense as that one.
Yeah.
And so, as labels do, or did back then, they saw the one thing they could sink their teeth into and go
Mm.
with. And I think the story goes that uh, our A&R guy, Kevin Patrick, who we still talk to on a regular basis, despite not having been on the label for 26 years or something now at this point.
Yeah.
But the relationship that he had, he didn't really, he wasn't a who you know guy. He was kind of a record collector and a what you know guy,
Mm.
and he brought that song into Donnie Ienner at Columbia Records, the president at the time, and he said, "This is a hit. Just do this." And there was no fanfare to it. It
Yeah.
happened exactly that way, and it was
Mm.
because people were singing it. It was the cat was out of the
Amazing.
bag. Yeah. So
And then, I mean, interestingly enough, it kind of did a little bit better outside of America, which can happen, it
yeah,
happens. Um, like, how did that feel? Because obviously at the time we're talking kind of, 2000. Um, I mean, the whole Y2K thing was going on then as well, which was absolutely nuts. But
yeah,
your song was huge, and I suppose you sort of got the information. I'm sure that you were still playing your gigs and you were kind of big doing it, and it was known. But as the momentum got going back then, and you were hearing, wow, like we're charting in the UK and we're charting in Europe and Australia and everything else. And I'm originally from South Africa. It was massive, like
yeah. I remember
absolutely
we played some
massive.
shows down there. We played
Yeah,
Durban and Johannesburg, and
yeah,
yeah, it was fun.
huge.
Well, what had happened was I think that the American label didn't understand that it was a rock song, right? And at the
Okay.
time, you have to remember American pop radio in the States was In Sync, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, very, very sort of R&B influenced
Mm,
pop star stuff, great songs, but stuff that we didn't do. We were a
yeah.
rock band and we made the songs on our own, and we didn't have Max Martin with us, and it was like, it was very
Yes.
homemade enterprise, and it was rough around the edges. Too rough, I think, for American pop radio, but the label insisted on trying to cross it over to American pop radio almost immediately.
Mm,
And we all kind of thought, oh, I don't maybe we should just let it go at rock radio for a little while and
yeah.
let it get its legs. And but they wanted it to be a pop song. So
It's so funny how they kind of categorize things so directly then, it's a little bit freer now, I feel.
it was a strange thing too, because they had been drawn to the song because of the popular appeal, the way that people were actually responding to it in the clubs in New York.
Mm,
And they then usurped that energy to try and push it over, because the crowds we were drawing were not pop kids. They were rock and roll, New York rock
yeah.
and roll crowds. So it was it was a mistake, I think,
Mm.
looking back, and we kind of watched them do it like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the upside to that was once it had come and gone in the States, they kind of stamped it as a failure.
Mm,
Um, and that's when we really started to be able to do whatever we wanted
yeah.
when they weren't paying attention to us. So by the
Yeah.
time we got to Australia, we were this like, we had been on the road for 3 months.
Yeah.
We were tough. We were all
Tight
20
and
pounds lighter
tough.
than we should have been. Like,
Yeah.
like we were ready to fight. So we
Yeah.
got out there and kind of just did things our way from that point on.
Mm.
And there that had upsides and downsides, but in the end, I think it established a certain level of independence that never broke, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just that complete belief in the product and yourselves, you can't beat that. And the record company can make their decisions in the suits, but ultimately it comes down to the passion and the fans. And that's what it's about as well, especially
Yeah.
all these years. I want to talk a little bit about the song itself because like you talk about a hook for a song and for me I'm a songwriter myself as well and I the bridge is so important in this song that you wouldn't really say it's a hook necessarily but it's like right up there front and center and that's also to do with the choice you made vocally which is very cool.
You mean to switch into the girl
Yeah.
persona?
The girl,
Well,
yeah.
so I always wanted to be the song to be genderless.
Yeah.
I at the time was listening to a lot of Ani DeFranco and the Indigo Girls, and I was learning how to sing to those female voices, not necessarily binary female voices either. So it was this. It just felt comfortable for where my vocal cords were sitting, and it felt good to rehearse to that and get the chops I needed for my own record, which was basically in this sung in the same place,
Mm.
as those artists, Prince as well, um, and got to a point where I felt like this little novella needed this third act, this middle eight, as it were, and
Another character, yeah.
another character to
Yeah.
take the voice and say things and tell the audience things. And I didn't have any options other than my own falsetto. So I was
Yeah.
thinking, well, what happens if I do it this way? Is it goofy? And the answer was yes. And have you ever heard anybody do this before? And I said, well, I heard Prince do it a little bit, but
Mm.
not really, like not like this, like not a full character switch.
Yeah.
So
And
um,
there's a little bit of a I don't know if anyone's ever said this before, but in Bohemian Rhapsody, they kind of do that, play into the characters and stuff. There's a little bit of
That's
that.
right. The
Yeah,
call and response of Freddie Mercury. Yeah.
sure.
So there's some precedent for it. But this was a very stark gender change.
Mm.
This was like you know, polar opposite kind of and now I've seen a lot of covers, people doing covers of it, non-binary artists doing covers of it, and it makes sense. And it
Yeah.
makes me just so happy that it hasn't been restricted in that way. Something I thought was maybe gonna send it into the obscurity
Mm.
bin
Yeah,
has
that must be interesting seeing all those different and like completely different people, like what One Direction and Scissor. Like
yeah,
that's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah, really cool. I'm just grateful that people, other very, very talented artists,
Mm.
more talented than I, frankly, have seen themselves in the song and been
Yeah.
able to voice it, in
Even
a person.
I also saw the ukulele orchestra of Great Britain did a rendition. I'm like,
Yeah,
you've made it. Like it's
really,
very
like that.
cool,
That
very
that was
cool.
really something. Yeah.
Yeah. And now obviously we cut to 2022 where it just absolutely explodes. Like TikTok goes nuts, hashtag teenage dirtbag, and the world and their mothers are jumping on the trend. Madonna, Lady Gaga, Quincy Jones, rest his soul. Like, oh my gosh, what did you do when you woke up to that?
Okay, so it all happened very fast, and they were stacked up really quickly, and suddenly there was a Gaga, and suddenly there was a Madonna, and these are icons for us. Lil Nas X did one, and Cheech and Chong, and like Chevy Chase, and all these like comedians who I grew up
Yes.
watching on Saturday Night Live, and but the one that really, I'm gonna get a little bit of a lump in my throat even talking about it, was when Quincy Jones did one. Uh, you know, I when Thriller came out, this was in 1983, I think. I was in the fourth grade, and there was a candy drive, and the two prizes were Synchronicity by the Police and Thriller. And I said to myself, I absolutely have to win those two records. Like, it just wasn't. So I took as many candy bars home, and I hustled them and I ate them and I raked leaves and I figured it
Yes.
out and I won those two LPs. And I became obsessed with the song "Human Nature" on Thriller and a couple of other songs from that record, but in particular "Human Nature." And that was how I discovered who Quincy Jones actually was. Um, and I was 10
Yeah.
or 11 maybe, and it was just this world of like, oh, you mean a guy decided how this should go? Like how this is like there's a person who's in charge of the drum sound and the keyboard arrangement and where the horns come in and all that stuff. And I just from that point on, he was like anything he touched. I was just in
Wow.
awe. And for him to even know my song
Oh,
is
it's wow.
shocking to me in the deepest, most like beautiful way. Like I can't, I'll never get over it. I'm just talking about it now. It freaks me out. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
I
he
mean,
was
that
a
inspiration, because you are ultimately, when you're young and getting into music, you see the guitar and the singing and everything, but you're a producer at heart. Like that is what you are, a creator.
yeah, yeah. That's where we came at it from.
Mm.
And one of the reasons we couldn't really bring it to a studio in the 90s, because if I'd have told anybody in a studio in New York in 1996 that I wanted it to sound like Paul Simon and
Yes.
Metallica at the same time, they would have laughed at me. You know, they would have.
Yes.
So, just that he was acknowledging
Yeah.
that recording, just
Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
yeah.
Oh, great. That's a great story there, Brendan. So you guys are back on tour now, and what's that like, being on tour again? I know that you're a very hardworking musician. I nearly said magician, musician.
Sometimes you
And
have to be both.
you got it right. But what is it like? Like just give me an idea of like a day on tour with Wheatus.
Well, it depends if it's a fly date or a tour bus date. If it's a tour bus date, you're constantly trying to find out like when is the bus going to stop at the truck stop because you want to hit the bathroom and get a little snack and stuff, and you got to time it. You don't want to sleep through the truck stop
Oh gosh,
because
no.
you then you really screwed up. Then you're in trouble. But if it's a fly date, you kind of like. I mean, I just did a guest appearance with Good Charlotte in Florida, and the night before, we played a show on a boat in New York Harbor, sort of cruising around the Statue of Liberty. And then I left there at about 1 o'clock in the morning. We got to the dock, unloaded the trailer, drove to Newark, New Jersey. I got on a plane at 6:30 in the morning, which meant that my alarm was set for 4 a.m.
Oh
So I
no.
slept for about an hour and a half.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Flew
And were
down
you
to
like,
Orlando. Yeah, I was a wreck. Flew down to Orlando, slept in the hotel from about 11 a.m. until about 3 p.m. Woke up, got a shower, met their entourage in the downstairs. Of the hotel, and that they're kind of like Hollywood entourage, those guys, like, and it was something I'm not used to, so I was kind of shaking a lot of hands like, oh, how did
like
I get here?
eye
um
bags and like,
yeah, totally wrecked, yeah, totally. Oh, long story, I played a boat last night, but and then did that show with them that evening, got back to the hotel, set the alarm for 4 a.m. again, got on a plane back to Pittsburgh, played a show in Pittsburgh with my band, and drove back from Pittsburgh to New York.
oh
Then
my
had a
gosh.
couple of hours off, and then we went on a field trip to go see AC/DC to Nashville, Tennessee, because our bass player and our backing vocalist Joey had never seen AC/DC live, and neither had Gabrielle, my partner. Oh, we'd seen them before, but we
Yeah.
one of the things we like to do together is
You were
see.
like, let's just cram that in while we're about
Gotta
it.
get gotta get the AC/DC show in there because I mean that's the real thing.
Amazing.
So
Well,
it
we
was
can't.
like,
Mm.
yeah, I don't even know how many hours. I don't. It just was
I know,
that's
I
so
lost
that's
track.
tour.
It felt
That's
like a
tour.
week.
It felt like a week, and it was probably about 48 hours.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, we can't wait to have you over in Dublin again, playing the Academy on the 22nd of November. Now, I understand that you have got Irish roots. Is that correct?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
do.
yeah. Irish passport holder and all that.
Ooh,
My grand was Nora Burke. She was born in Roscommon,
okay.
um, and she came over here and died when she was very young, unfortunately. So a lot of that family history was lost on us for a
Mm,
while, but we reconnected around the time that our records started coming out in Ireland.
that's
And
cool.
yeah, so we're friendly with the Burkes and the Gouldings from Roscommon and from Galway.
That's
And
amazing.
Yeah, so we love going. I absolutely love going to
Yeah.
Ireland. It's one of my favorite places in the world. If I had to be in another place aside from New York, it would definitely be somewhere in Dublin. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Before I let you go, because I know you're a popular guy and you've got loads of people waiting to talk to you, just to find out, apart from this tour, what is next for you guys? Some new music in the
So
wings?
right, so we have this anniversary tour in the UK, 20 some odd dates, culminating in a show at the uh what is it, the I can't even
Ovo.
remember, Wembley Arena,
Oh,
that one,
yeah.
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 With Bowling for Soup, and then we take a few weeks off before we start recording. I've asked our booking agents to keep January and February and March clear so we can actually make a record, because we've been trying to make album 7 for
Okay.
10 years
Oh,
and we have not come off the road long enough to get
yes.
into the
Album
studio.
number one came and like grabbed your attention. You were like, wait, wait,
Yeah, yeah,
wait.
yeah. Which we're great. That's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
But we want some new music. You know, we have
Sure.
about 80 plus original songs streaming on all the sites, and we want to get it up to 100 as soon as we can. So we're going to try and make a new record.
Keep making music, Brendan. I mean,
Yeah.
I just know that you're a working musician, and that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like that this is your thing, and you're just never going to stop. So never stop.
I won't, and you don't stop writing either, please. I definitely want to
I've
hear
got to
from
get
you.
back at that. But Brendan, thank you so much for chatting to us on Dublin City FM. We will see you at the Academy in Dublin on the 22nd of November with the guys.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. It was nice speaking to you.